Welcome to the Westside Investors Network, WIN, your community of investing knowledge for growth. This is the Real Estate Professionals Investing Podcast for real estate professionals by real estate professionals. This show is focused on the next step in your career, investing. Thank you for listening. And please, if you like our content, rate us on your podcast provider. Just a quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are for educational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any shares or securities, make or consider any investments, or take any other action.
Welcome back to another episode of the Deal Deep Dive segment on the Westside Investors Network podcast. I'm your host, Trent Werner. In this segment, our featured guests will share their unique stories on a specific deal they've invested in. We will dive deep into finding the deal, financing the deal, writing an offer, and the due diligence. Do us a solid and smash that subscribe button, leave us a rating, and share this episode. And now, let's dive deep. Welcome back to the Westside Investors Network podcast. I'm your host, Trent Werner. On today's episode, we are joined by Chris A. Williams. Chris is the owner of the Assets Real Estate Team. Today, we're talking about how Chris burned the ships at 20 years old and dove headfirst into real estate, and now, 5 years later, has his own real estate team and invests in multiple single-family deals. Our conversation is primarily focused on agents that want to use the real estate industry as a business and not as a job. Chris has trained dozen agents on how to replicate his sales program and his sales approach to now help him invest in different deals in Virginia. Let's welcome Chris A. Williams. All right, Chris Williams joining the WIN podcast today. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to the episode.
And Chris, I told you before we started recording, I love having young professionals on the show, kind of talking about that next wave of professionals in the real estate industry. I'm curious, how did you get into real estate at such a young age, and why did you want to get into real estate at a young age?
Yeah, man, crazy story. So I got started when I was 20 years old, so about 5 years ago. And most people when they first get started, like at a young age, it's usually because they saw somebody that they knew in real estate or they had some type of connection there. Me, that wasn't the case whatsoever. I didn't really know the difference between buying and renting when I first got licensed. Like I had no familiarity, no knowledge, no connections, anything like that in real estate. I kind of just stumbled upon it, depending on how much time we got in this podcast. I mean, I could get to the whole story or a condensed version. I want to kind of give the more condensed version. So basically, I was known as a football player my whole life. That's what I was supposed to do, in higher levels after I graduated high school was play football and then just keep on accelerating on that route. What happened was a week before training camp started for college, I found out that I didn't have a scholarship anymore. So that just completely shifted my life and my plan and I didn't really know what to do. So I picked up another job, went to community college, and at the time, because I didn't have a car, it got to the point where pretty much all the money that I was making from my jobs, I was having to spend back on taking these Ubers to go to work and go to school. So I'm like, this isn't going to work. Dropped out of school, picked up another job, and I'm working every day, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. at one job, and then 2 to 9:30 at another job. And I was doing this for months. I'm like, hey, this is not a way to live. Like, this is not sustainable. I'm barely making any money. I'm working all day, every day. So at my one of my jobs, which was out cleaning out cars, a lot of people when they clean out cars they listen to music. For me, I always like to intake information. So I was listening to podcasts, and one of my favorite podcasts, the host, he was always talking about real estate and the benefits of real estate. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what is this real estate thing? And I looked it up. I realized that he was talking about real estate investing. And, at the time I was 19 with $30 in my bank account. So I'm like, all right, can't do real estate investing. What else can I do? And one of my other jobs I was working was a salesperson at Foot Locker selling shoes. So I'm like, all right, well, let me look more into the sales part. And then real estate agent or salesperson is what popped out to me. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm already doing this, selling shoes. And if I can sell shoes, I think I can sell houses. So, a couple months later, I got licensed. And 3 days later, the world shut down, COVID.
Yeah, and I love that because you were in a situation, right?
Mhm.
Working tirelessly and not necessarily getting ahead at that point. And so instead of
Yep.
just, I guess, putting your tail between your legs and dealing with that, you handled it. You chose a different path.
Yeah.
and took matters into your own hands. So
Mhm.
I have a couple friends, a brother-in-law that started new careers right when COVID happened, and it was a
Mhm.
very weird time. Real estate was weird. Obviously, I was in as a broker in real estate at that point
Yeah.
too, and it was just a very interesting time. So how did that coming into the industry in that scenario shape how you got to where you're at right now?
Yeah, man. Honestly, it was super tough at the time, but I'm very grateful it happened because I went through all the struggle, all the bad parts, all the hardships early. So I got them out the way. And also, it helps now. Like when I am having success, like it just keeps me grounded, it keeps me humble because I know like what you have can also be taken at the moment that you never know. So my first year, man, was such a struggle, and it was tough because everybody was doing good around me because interest rates were low. So everybody was buying a house. Investors were getting great profit margins on their deals, and me, I was just young and dumb. To be honest with you, I didn't know my right from wrong. Basically, I had never worked corporate before, never really been in that type of lifestyle. So it was a huge adjustment for me, and I think that's what took me so long to have success. Like, man, my first year, I only sold two houses. And I was working full time and like more than full time because coming from my football background, I just believe in hard work and like hard work can get you far. So when everybody would work 40 hours, I work 80 hours. I was in the office, first person in, last person out, weekends, all of that. And there was just no success that came from it my first year.
But looking back on it now, I bet that was the foundation for how you got to where you're at. All that time
100%.
and energy during that first year, yeah, you may not have had the dollar amount to
Hmm.
say you had success, but it definitely helped you get successful.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's kind of what I'll implement to my agents also too. Like the thing with me is like, yeah, I was working hard, but I just wasn't working smart, and I didn't really know what to do because like we're talking about COVID. Thing with COVID is people weren't allowed to come in the office. Like you can only have I think two people, very max. And of course that person that's coming in, they're focused on their work. They don't really have time to train and mentor me and kind of teach me the way. So I was just running around basically doing things, and I you don't know what you don't know basically. So that's kind of what led to the struggle. So I think now, like, that's why I teach my agents, like, just the importance of just coming in and being around the environment. Like, you can just learn so much just by sitting in rooms and listening to people. You don't even have to talk. Just sit in rooms, listen to people, and you'll be able to pick up so much insight, so much valuable information.
I love that story because in my first year in the business, I think I made like 20 grand or something like that, right? Like
Yeah,
was working
yeah.
hard, made 20 grand, and obviously that wasn't
Mhm.
enough to get by.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget my mentor took me to one of our other branches at the
Mhm.
company I was with at the time, and there was a guy that's been doing it for a long time. His office door was open, and it was just us three in the office because they had to meet about something. Guy
Yeah.
hopped on the phone, and the way that I heard him on the phone with his client was something like that conversation I will never forget because it kind of like struck a light bulb in my head on like, okay, you don't have to act like a lawyer when you're on the phone. Like this guy was like, no, just come over to my house, like bring the kids. I got a zip line, all these things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys are gonna close a deal right now because he's building a relationship and that's a client of his that he's gonna have forever. And
Exactly.
that just listening really made a light bulb go off in my head, which was, I mean, I'm glad that you shared that because it just reminded me of that story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So being an agent, obviously you said you were working really hard first year. I'm sure you're still working really hard, but now you're leading a team and you're an investor, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
How did you go from first year agent with, less than ideal success to being a team lead or managing a team and now investing in real estate?
Yeah, for sure. It's been an interesting story. So I would say, like, honestly, when I first started in real estate, I had set goals for myself, and I set all my goals around 5 years because I just thought, like, 20 years old, I just thought my life ended at 25, basically. I'm like, all right, this is when I'm a real adult. This is when I gotta have a family and do all of this stuff. So, like, I had all my goals centered around being 25. One of my goals was to have a brokerage by the time I was 25 years old. And the thing about goals is sometimes, like, if you write them down, you put them on your vision board, you may forget completely about them. But just because you wrote them down, did that act, it's just like you just kind of manifest them. So it's kind of crazy how that works. But kind of my story, my transition from agent to team lead, it got to the point, I'll say within 2 years, that I was just picking up so many leads from my social media to the point where I just couldn't handle it. because me personally as an agent, my individual business, I never wanted to be that person that did 100 deals a year. Just there's so much stress that comes with that if you don't delegate. And we're just talking if you just a solo agent with really no help. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that. But I was fine doing my production, but there were so many leads that were coming in, and I didn't even know things like your DM requests. I discovered that one day, and I saw like there were leads, from 5, 6 months ago. They're like, "Hey, I'm pre-approved for 700,000. I'm ready to buy a house," or "Hey, like I want to list my house next week. Can you help me out?" And I never even saw those. Just because I didn't know, and it just got way too much. So I'm like, all right, instead of leaving literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, let me bring in another agent. And I brought that agent in, and that agent, he was with a different brokerage at that point, or before he was with a different brokerage, he was with them for around a year, I'll say. He didn't know how to write a contract yet. So it was interesting going through that whole because you basically got a brand new agent. So training him up, doing all that, and within 90 days, he sold his first house. And then he immediately after that, he started working on more clients, and he started getting listings. I'm like, all right, cool. Like if I can replicate this with one person, I can replicate this with two. So second one brought her on as a trial. She started doing very well early. So I'm like, all right, well, now I have multiple proof of concept. So now I have multiple, I can just scale this infinitely. So I brought on more, and then a couple months later, we were at 12, I want to say, and we just kept on growing and growing. And that's, my transition to team lead. And as far as investor goes, honestly, it was last year when I really started purchasing property. And I had one personal property at the time. And I was like, all right, like it's cool having a house, but I need to start making more money, like start making passive income because I can't just rely on my active income anymore. It's just not smart to do. So I started looking around. I'm like, dang, interest rates are super high right now for regular people. So I know for an investor, it's definitely going to be high. So I just started doing some more research and things like that. And I found out about creative financing. I'm like, this is interesting. So I can basically set my interest rate, or I can, take on other people's low interest rates. This is cool. So I brought my first deal probably like within a few months of me researching that. And I started doing some more strategies like wholesaling, then fix and flipping, and just buying more rentals. And that's kind of my track there.
So what kind of creative financing did you use on your first deal that you were just talking about?
Subject
Okay.
to. And it's cool because I got that deal from, it was a listing of mine that I had that wasn't selling. And I just couldn't figure out why it wasn't selling. And it's funny because at that time I was learning about creative financing, but I never thought to do it on my own house, like my own like listing. And then it got to the point like we're 60 days on market and my listings don't really sit. So that was really shocking. I'm like, okay, like what's going on? And it just had this bright light bulb moment. I'm like, hey, how about I just buy this house myself? And I'll tell you, man, that first acquisition appointment, you know how scary that was for me? Like, I'm feeling like I'm at my very first buyer's appointment, my palms sweating. Because creative financing is kind of hard to explain, to be honest with you, when you're first starting it out. So it was like a 3 hour long acquisition appointment, but they ended up signing with me. So that's what matters.
And I mean that because I know there's teams around our area here in Portland Metro that you'll see the billboards and it'll be cash offer or we'll list it or whatever. They
Yep.
offer all the different options, I should say.
Hmm.
And so by doing one yourself, you can almost offer that to future clients that want to sell their
Yes.
house, right?
Yes, 100%. That's the arm that we have also in my company too. My team is I feel like we can help any seller literally in any situation because where a lot of real estate agents make the mistake is they just want to list the house. But all houses can't be listed and all houses should not be listed, honestly. So what happens is that agent, they may walk into a house and may be messed up and they're like, all right, well, I can't list it because it's not going to pass appraisal. And they will literally walk out the appointment and be like, I can't help you. Oh my gosh, you're doing such a disservice to the seller at that point. Also, you're losing a lot of money by doing that. So, what I tell my agents is we got to focus on all the things that we can provide a seller. So, whether that's a listing, whether that's a cash offer, whether that's innovation, whether that's creative financing, there's so many different ways in which we can help out sellers at the end of the day.
Yeah, and one thing that just hearing you talk, there's a lot of real estate brokers and agents in the business that treat it like a job. They
Hmm.
they are there as a salesperson, just trying to churn and burn as many deals as possible.
Yeah.
But I think the way that you really get the most out of this industry as a broker or an agent is to treat it like a business. How can you
Yep.
use your knowledge, your skill set to grow your financial freedom, your independence, your wealth?
Exactly.
When you start doing that, it almost makes real estate more fun because you're
Yeah.
constantly looking at how can I get more deals? How can I, help these sellers in ways that traditional brokers aren't going to be able to help them, to your point.
And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Get things done while you're on the move. Learn more about working with a virtual assistant through Offsite Professionals. It's a great way to get all the things done that you need to get done. Have freedom in your time and streamline your life by automating your business. Stop spending time on the tasks that you can delegate and start spending more time on your superpower. Call us today at 503-446-3177 or visit our website at offsiteprofessionals.com.
Uptown Syndication is now offering a syndication coaching program for you to take your real estate portfolio to the next level. This is your opportunity to have experienced syndicators, AJ and Chris Shepard, coach you on your way to controlling your real estate investing future. Our coaching program will provide you with the tools and framework needed to begin syndicating real estate in your target market. Go to uptownsyndication.com today to learn more.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's what I love doing, man. Like I love like the nitty-gritty kind of like the complicated details that nobody really wants, or people are like, "Hey, I don't really know what to do with this." I love coming in those and like seeing like, "Hey, like how can we work a deal? How can we make things happen?" Even situations like I may run into a seller where they just want too much money up front for a creative finance deal. My entry fee doesn't make sense. So I'll do something like just get more creative with it. Like, all right, well, okay, I know in let's say 72 months that I'm gonna have made this amount of money at that point. So how about instead of paying you all this, let's split it up. I'll pay you something up front and then pay you in 72 months the remainder of it. And then we'll set that at a low interest rate. So it makes sense for me and makes sense for them also too. So it's super cool, just like getting creative with it and finding solutions. Cause I always feel like if a homeowner wants to sell their property, there's a solution there. We just got to figure out exactly how we can sell their property and how the deal can make sense for both of us, me as an investor and the homeowner themselves.
Absolutely. And there's that quote, right, where it's, you get compensated in direct proportion to the problems that you can solve.
Yep.
So if you're able to
Hmm.
be that person that's solving problems for these sellers, or maybe not, it's not a problem, but getting them to their goal, achieving their
Yeah.
goals,
Hmm.
um, you're gonna be successful. The sellers are gonna be grateful for you coming in and helping them, whether it's just listing their house or buying it from them directly. So I think
Yeah.
the more skill sets and tools that you have surrounding especially creative financing, I mean, that's something that very few real estate professionals, I think, focus on and are proficient in. And
Hmm.
so being able to do that and talk about it and repeat that is something that, is definitely in a minority percentage of the business. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Chris, I know you said you got your first deal last year.
Hmm.
What kind of deals are you looking at going forward in a time where, interest rates are still high? The market may not be moving and churning as much as it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So what are you doing in this current market for your business, your brokerage, your team, as
Yeah.
well as your investment portfolio?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So as far as investment portfolio, what I'm looking for is buy and holds long term. I love me some buy and hold long term. So like I said, I'm 25 right now. Like I don't need like I've flipped and I've done wholesale and like it's cool to have a big portion of cash, but really what am I gonna do with it? I would much rather take less cash up front and have that prorated over 30 years or however long the agreement is. It just makes the most sense for me. So doing it that way, that's more so what I'm looking for. I love purchasing properties with creative structure, even if I flip out of it, or even if I make it a short term, make it a long term, all things like that, because my entry fee is mitigated a lot versus purchasing with other investments. And that's more so on the investment side. I say as far as on the team working with regular retail clients, a lot of people right now they're concerned with like the tariffs, the interest rates, all things like that. My thing is, man, people are still buying, people are still selling every single day. I guarantee you, like if we had a nuclear war, a house would still sell that day. Now, it's probably not gonna be as many, but there's gonna be at least one house that sells that day that happens. So all you gotta do is instead of worrying about the problems, Just find the people that are doing things still. Just follow the money, see where the money's flowing, and then go into that market and just try to capitalize on that market as possible. And that's why I love when we work with investors because it just works hand in hand. The thing about your retail clients is you got emotions and all that stuff. And I know from being an agent, you can work with a client for 6 to 8 months, showing them houses every day, and they just say they want to rent. Okay, now what? You work with a seller and they may not get the net that they want from the property their house may sit, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna rent it out. Then what? Like, it doesn't make much. Like, it doesn't help you out as an agent. Versus if you're working with investors, if you get the numbers right, they don't care really. They're not emotional. They're just gonna buy the house, and you can get paid a multitude of ways also to working with investors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, another reason why it's so important for brokers and agents to view this as a business.
Yeah.
Because, like you just said, you could be working with a client for 8 months and all of a sudden they change their mind. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you didn't waste 8 months, but you're not going to get paid for those 8 months.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were also focusing on how can you add to your portfolio, at least,
Mm-hmm.
that effort and that energy and the time is going to eventually pay you back
Exactly.
um, through the
Exactly.
property that you purchase.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that you just said too is you're focused on continuing to buy creative deals. Another
Yeah.
thing you said that not every property can be listed or should be listed.
Mm-hmm.
I view that as the same when it comes to investment. I guess just investment houses. We'll keep it with single family for right now, but it really rings true with any property. But
Yeah.
there's certain properties that make sense, whether it's creative or wholesale or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
each investment has, I guess, the highest and best use, right?
Yeah,
Whether
for
it's
sure.
flipping it, holding it long term, wholesaling it, whatever it may be. What's your process surrounding, someone comes to you and says, "Hey, Chris, I have a single family house." What is your, I guess, your order of operations or your timeline or your preferred investment strategy from top to bottom when you have someone come to you and say, "Hey, I want to sell my house." Are you looking to hold it first and then wholesale and then, flip, or what do you look for in that, I guess, scenario?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it just depends on certain times. Like there are certain times where it's like, okay, I need some cash right now, so I'm gonna wholesale. Like that I definitely need that. But if I'm like more like in a regular time where I'm not needing in cash, then yeah, I'm always looking to keep. So like I have one right now under contract. I'm just still deciding like what do I want to do with it? Because yeah, I could flip it and it's like the rehab is easy. It's like a super cosmetic repair, nothing too crazy. It's like, yeah, I can flip it and take my profit, or I could refi to DSCR and take the equity out of it and then just keep the property as a long-term rental. So it gets interesting. It really depends on the property, man. So if it's like, if I'm looking for a buy and hold, I'm looking for a 3-2 at least. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And if there's not currently, all right, let's say it's a 3 bed, 1 bathroom, because we have a lot of older homes in our area that, back then they only had like 1 bathroom, I'll say. So if it's like, let's say 1,300 plus square feet, all right, do I got space in there to put another bathroom? All right. Does the cost make sense at that point? If I can and the cost isn't really too crazy, then yeah, I would rather do that and, keep it in the portfolio versus selling it versus flipping it. That's just my strategy with it. Now, if I run into a property and it just needs a ton of work, then yeah, I'm just gonna flip it or I'll probably wholesale it, to be honest with you. Like I said, it just depends on the time. Like I kind of get spoiled in the sense where flips just take so long. Or wholesales, it's like I can get paid pretty quickly from it, especially if I'm making a good amount from it. Then why not? If I'm only gonna make like 5K on the wholesale, then all right, I'll probably keep it to flip it. But if I'm coming out pretty good, why not just take your quick profits and you can put that? What I do typically is I'll take my profits from wholesale and I'll put that into my buy and holds, give me a larger leeway for a higher entry fee on some other ones that can cash flow a bit more.
I like that. I mean, I understand where you're coming from on that. And so
Mhm.
as someone that's never wholesaled, like I flip or buy and hold,
Yeah,
it's just not a concept that I'm familiar with, but I understand where you're coming from.
yeah.
Now let me ask you, when it comes to, let's say you're going to flip something, and
Mhm.
because this has happened to us a couple of times in the last 12 months,
Mhm.
got a great deal, good entry, good purchase, flipped it, list it, sits, doesn't sell. for a lot of people, and I actually had a client that this happened to, and he owns long-term holds too. So, I mean, he could have just
Mhm.
rented it out at the end of the day, but the metrics weren't right.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people that are just getting into it, like you were a couple years ago, where I want to start investing, I want to do a flip. All right, we flipped it, looks beautiful, and boom, we're screwed. Life's ending. It's not selling. We're losing everything.
Yep.
You can just refinance that and rent it. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on, maybe you're not cash flowing like you want to on a hold, but at least you're not, taking a bath on the deal, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I always say let's talk about a flip. You don't make money when you sell the deal, you make your money when you buy the deal. So you have to buy smart. That's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of newer investors, they make the mistake because they get like the shiny object syndrome. They're like, okay, cool. I finally found a house in which I can buy. But sellers, they always want more for the house and they lose on negotiations because they're like, all right, well, I just really want to get this property under contract. I really want to flip this house. So seller, you want this? Fine, I'll give you that. Well, their margins are tight, so they're already getting into the deal hoping everything goes perfect just to meet their minimum profit margins. And some don't even have profit margins, unfortunately. They're just like, all right, we're just gonna vibe and just see hopefully we make money. Which hopefully you shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, so when something does happen, the inevitable, then they're in a rock and a hard place. And that's how people do lose money on deals. So whenever I'm analyzing a deal, I always look at what's the very worst case scenario. So if it comes to a flip, I'm already assuming I have to pay a 3% buyer's agent commission, 3% agent listing commission, and 3% or 3.5% for the closing costs. I'm already assuming that. Now, the great thing, and this is just a small portion of it, great thing is if the deal sells quick, if it sells quick, it's got good competition. I'm not gonna have to pay the 3% buyer's commission. I can drop that down to 2 or 2.5. I own a brokerage, so either I can be the agent on it or I can just pay agent to list it for 1%. And then let's say best case scenario, I don't have to pay closing costs. Well, I've already factored in, I think that's what 10% I'll say. I've already factored in 10%. So if I only have to pay 3, 5, if I only have to pay 4 or 5%, great profit margin on the deal. And also too with your rehab, you always just gotta assume high numbers. Like I made the mistake before of assuming too low and something unforeseen always comes up. Like literally always, no matter what. You can have the nicest house where you think it's just a cosmetic repair. Something's gonna come up, unforeseen costs. So you just gotta just be super conservative, I'll say, on your numbers. Don't be aggressive and yeah, just budget for worst case scenario.
And don't do a deal just to do a deal if it's not
Yes.
meeting your numbers. Please,
Yes,
please
correct.
just walk away.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, Chris, did I miss talking about anything today in terms of your brokerage or your investments? I mean, I loved hearing about your progress from diving headfirst, burning the ships behind you, and just going all
Yeah.
in real estate, and now being an investor and working on creative deals. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Nothing too necessary, I would say. I mean, more so like kind of what I'm focused right now is just giving the information back out to people. Cause like I've been blessed to learn a lot myself, but a lot of times when you're trying to figure out things, like you got to sort through millions of YouTube videos, read hundreds of like before I even did my first flip or creative finance deal, I probably read like 20 investment books. I was like, dang, this is kind of a lot of stuff. So my goal now is just to make the information very accessible, very easy for people to understand it. So what I do now is I'll just make videos about these topics, just put them up on YouTube for free for people to indulge in them. And if somebody does a deal, that would be amazing. But even if somebody doesn't do a deal, if they just watch the content, now at least you're somewhat educated on it and you can give that information to somebody else.
Absolutely. And where can people connect with you on social media and YouTube?
Yeah, it's at I am Chris A. Williams on all platforms. At I am Chris A. Williams. And yeah, like I was mentioning, YouTube, we're leaning heavy into that. So me as a real estate agent, my goal is really because there's so many agents who have investing opportunities that they just don't. It's like you guys are working with investors. You're getting like at least 20 deals a year from your investor. Why don't you just invest yourself? But I don't know, it's because they want to work their job as a real estate agent or they just are scared. I don't know why they don't, but I just really want to preach to them like use your commission money to make money. You got to see money as a tool at the end of the day. That's really all money is. Whether you got $1, whether you got $1 million in your bank account is nothing. It's just an object. But what can you do with that money? So you have to use it as a tool to make your money make money.
I love it. And think about it like a stock market, right? If you get a dividend, most of the time you're reinvesting that anyway into the same stock that you're getting paid from. So use your commission money as a dividend and reinvest into yourself, into your financial future.
Literally. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I definitely appreciate you, Trent. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, I'm excited to see the episode. And I hope somebody was able to get at least one valuable gem from it that they can apply to their business today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Professionals Investing Podcast on WIN, your community of investing knowledge for growth. We hope that this episode has increased your knowledge and added value to your path to freedom. If you would, please take a second to rate us so that we can get more great investors to interview. If you or someone that you know wants to be on, please visit westsideinvestors.com and fill out our form to be on the show. Thank you again and enjoy your day.